looks like the weather will be nice, just crisp. It
Yeah.
looks like the high is going to be about 51 degrees, and tonight it's supposed to drop to 33, so it's going to be chilly.
Oh boy.
But it looks like it's free, and then we have Saturday and Sunday rain, maybe another inch if we're lucky, which would be nice. And then we get more rain at the end of next week. Looks like at least another inch there if it actually materializes. And I don't see anything mentioning wind, so that's always a positive.
Yeah, the wind makes a big difference too.
Yeah, well, we were over at CR last night, and in that storm, I don't know, some tree or bush or something came down a car in front of us when we were leaving the parking lot. Guy stopped and got out and pushed it out of the way. So I mean, it wasn't anything big, but obviously between the rain and the wind, things are already starting to come down. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, okay, it is 5:30, and we do appear to have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I will turn on the
recording in progress.
recording. Okay. As we gather today, we acknowledge that Eureka, California is ancestral territory of the Wiyot people. We also honor all Indigenous people and territories and sovereign governments that share governance within Humboldt County, California. We gather with respect and gratitude to these Indigenous people. We thank and honor the Indigenous caretakers of this land who continue to cherish and protect it. Their elders have instructed the young to consider the 7 generations ahead as they continue to protect the rights of the land and all people who live on it. We encourage all to align and follow the lead of local Indigenous communities as they steward the land and protect all of its natural resources. And with that, Carol, if you want to do the roll call. Carol? Carol? Carol, can you hear me?
Looks like she might be having trouble unmuting.
Okay, I unmuted.
There she is. Okay.
Sorry, I'm on my phone.
Oh,
Okay, so we got Jim,
yes.
Bird.
Yes,
Sorry, I'm not being as formal. I don't have my computer up yet.
All right.
We have Guy.
Yes.
That's so.
I'm here.
Ellen.
Here.
Let's see. And I think that's all we have present.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda that anybody would like to request at this time? Seeing none, we'll go ahead with the agenda as it was presented. I do have some opening notes this evening, and then we'll quickly get into our guest speakers that are with us now. This is something I'd like to present to the Board of Supervisors when accepting the Human Rights Awareness Month proclamation at next Tuesday's Board of Supervisors meeting. So if you think it's acceptable, please let me know. If you don't think it's acceptable, we can talk about that as well. Homelessness, Indigenous culture, sanctuary concerns, racism, the treatment of inmates, and more are all legitimate issues for us to address. But in the winter of 2022-23, I suspect we will continue with those issues and others on our agendas. But joining them will be fear. Fear if you are a Jewish resident wondering what hateful literature might be deposited in your yard. Fear if you are part of the LGBTQ community for holding any kind of an event where you can be truly yourselves and have it negatively portrayed in a calculated manner. Fear, perhaps, if you have the temerity to voice support for these groups and other vulnerable community members. It was recently stated by at least one individual that I have a right to hate. That's true, I guess. Yes, any of us can have a sick hatred within us, but we as community members and volunteers of this commission also have the right to stand up for human rights of all citizens and to allow all to live in dignity. We must dedicate ourselves to calling out hatred when it appears, wherever it appears. Our community is not perfect, but we will always work to make it better for all. Okay, having read that, we'll do the minutes of the previous meeting. I assume that there were no corrections, Carol?
I didn't receive any.
Okay, then we'll take that as an approval. The next item on the agenda then would be a treasurer's report from Guy.
Okay, more boring treasury reports. Again, our balance is unchanged. So we're again at 476.90 as of actually today. And the only other thing I have to report is with our new line item, I did send in our first bill to the Board of Supervisors, and I will await payment from them. Otherwise, quiet on our front.
I do have one question for you, Guy. We have a balance with the Humboldt Area Foundation of approximately $500 that wasn't distributed to any groups. I wonder if you could check with the Humboldt Area Foundation and see how we can dispose of that remaining balance, because I don't think we're going to, since we do have a line item budget allotment, we may want to find some way to redirect that money.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is our special guests. We have with us tonight Jeremy Clark. He's the sorry about that.
It's
I can't
a
say it.
long title.
It's not a hard word. I just can't say it. Organization Development and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Manager. Okay, I got it. And Naftali Miller Rubio, Racial and Cultural Equity Manager for Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services. And our subject tonight is diversity, equity, and inclusion, with emphasis on county efforts in that area. But I'd like also for our guests to maybe elaborate on if they see a role for the Human Rights Commission to play, not within the government, but outside the government, outside of Humboldt County operations. So with that, we would like to welcome both of you. I don't know who's going to speak first, but you are certainly welcome to start now.
Sorry, I was having some trouble with the mute button. Well, first, let me say good evening. Thank you for the invite. Really excited to be here. Totally appreciative of all the great work that this committee does. And I am definitely, and I guess I can speak for Naftali. I feel confident in saying that both Naftali and I are very happy and pleased to be here. So I am going to, we have prepared a presentation for you just to sort of apprise the committee of the work that's being done at a county level, at DHHS level as well. Naftali is going to sort of kick it off. I'm going to drive the screen. So yeah, I the last thing I'll say before I get into the PowerPoint is just that I know that Neftali and I had the opportunity to connect earlier, and we really welcome any questions that the committee has regarding the work that we've done up until this point, really the future, any ideas that you have, any things that you'd like to see. So really, please feel free to engage us with any. Holly, did you have anything that you wanted to say before I started projecting?
No, I think that's great. Just wanted to echo everything that you said and really thank all of you and the for having us here, and really happy to be joining you and being able to share the work that we're doing both in the department at DHHS and countywide. And it's an exciting time to be doing this work, and I'm happy to share what's been going on. So thank you.
With that said,
So, as you know, Jeremy said, we'll be kind of walking you through the work that both of us are doing, but really just wanted to start out with a timeline to kind of set the foundation for the different initiatives or elements of the programs that have happened so far. Everything really kicked off with a Board of Supervisors directive that came out in July 2020 to staff, asking to identify strategies to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. That same year at DHHS, sort of independent, but parallel to this, the Racial Equity Steering Committee kicked off, which I'll talk a little bit about that in a later slide. And then nearly a year went by. In August 2021, HR conducted the inaugural DEI assessment, and that was org-wide, and then presented those findings in fall of 2021. In September of last year, again, 2021, my position as the Racial and Cultural Equity Manager was allocated to DHHS. And the following June, just this past summer, Jeremy's role as Organizational Development DEI Manager was recommended through the 2022-2023 budget process. Then just this July, the Board of Supervisors adopted mandatory DEI training for all county staff, which is really exciting. Nothing like that has happened so far. So that's a pretty big first step. And just this past September, so this fall, we kicked off affinity groups countywide. So staff are able to initiate any group that they would like to be a part of. And so far, we have 3 groups, one focused on neurodiversity, Latinx, and LGBTQIA+ population. So those are really staff identified, staff led. There's a committee that offers oversight, but I think Jeremy will talk more about that. So I don't want to get ahead of myself. But I think this timeline just highlights that sometimes progress can sometimes feel slow, but in reality, a lot has happened in a pretty condensed timeline. Kind of starting from almost nothing happening internally at the department to really seeing some concrete steps forward in very recent months, really. So with that, you want to flip to the next slide and I'll talk about some work that's really happening specific at DHHS. So as I said, the Racial Equity Committee was started in 2020. It's a diverse group of staff with different roles from across every branch within the department. I think leadership realized that the equity measures were built into each of the branches in terms of service delivery, but there really wasn't anything happening internally with how we were preparing staff to show up each day, to treat each other, and to support one another. And the committee really was created from a desire to walk the walk and really better support staff in their learning to truly become an anti-racist organization. That group functions really, they came up with a strategic plan, which my position came out of. So discussing plans for program implementation, but they also do learning together activities, which are pretty cool, where we're able to talk about race, racism, and equity as a group. And so we're actually doing learning together as we create plans for the department. And so Jeremy's been able to join those groups, and currently we meet twice a month. That strategic plan came from that group. It spans from 2021 to 2025. And we're rolling it out to staff, which we're pretty much done with, but really asking them for their questions and feedback, how they see themselves in the plan. It really has an internal focus, but will help support the awareness and skill sets that will improve how services are delivered to the community. And so starting internally, but hoping to kind of move more broadly as time goes on. And then if you flip the side, it does have 6 key areas, which I can talk just briefly or try to be sort of brief about. The first of the 6 goals was to develop a permanent cultural and racial equity team. That's my position. And we do have an analyst that's working part-time to support, or she works full-time, but part of her time is to support this program. We have training for all staff. We have a common terms training that started at DHHS and is now mandatory countywide, with more on the way. We have an area focused on supervisors. As you can imagine, as staff become more comfortable and have more expectations placed on them in this area, supervisors are going to play a unique role in supporting that learning, being able to answer questions, hold people accountable, that sort of thing. And so we have coaching and support specific for supervisors. Developing coaching across the department. So really expanding models that exist currently to meet the needs of the full set of folks who work for DHHS. Improving hiring, recruitment, and retention. So everything from collecting baseline data to understand where we are currently, to improving trainings for hiring panels, or really looking at job postings and interview questions. And some of that stuff's already in process now, which is exciting. And then the last is listening to, understanding, and improving experiences of BIPOC staff specifically. And a lot of the countywide initiatives that I suspect Jeremy is going to be talking about really touch on that work already. So I'd be happy to share this plan with you, but those are the kind of overarching 6 areas that we have identified that we're working on implementation now. If you want to, so next steps, really those implementation teams, facilitating multidisciplinary work groups. There is training that is very staff focused, as I said, but a lot of it is systems work. And so thinking through how to incorporate HR and IT and some of our more training oriented teams to make sure we get those programs off the ground. Expanding the training that I mentioned, building in more modules. We have stuff specific for supervisors, a web-based training that is on implicit bias that everybody will be able to access through NeoGov. And then moving on to sort of future planning. And then I think a really important piece that we want to continue throughout is data and quality improvement. So are we tracking the right things? Are we asking the right questions? How do we know if what we're doing is working, and what needs we have as we move through implementation of our plan? And so trying to check back in and stay current with how things are playing out with staff. So that's kind of a view of what's happening at DHHS, and Jeremy can take you through what's happening at the county level. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you, Naftali, as always. And I don't know why I always let her go first. She's a tough act to follow. So just take a second. So a lot of the things that Naftali described are actually things that are also taking place on the HR side as well, except we just look at it through a countywide lens. There may be a little external engagement. But what's happening now is I'm in the process of drafting the diversity, equity, and inclusion plan for the County of Humboldt. And so this really, the lens sort of an approach that's going to be conveyed in this plan really is at the county level, we don't really want to hinder any of the work of our departments. As a matter of fact, we really want to be active in supporting that work. And so Director Ohana and myself, I also work closely with CAO Hayes, and they are really supportive of this approach of really sort of HR trying to do its best to create the context for our departments to be successful as they carry out their diversity, equity, and inclusion related work. And so to that end, I'm in the process of creating a plan that really seeks to sort of outline and detail what that looks like. And I'm not really at liberty to share a lot of it at this point, just because it's not really fully complete. But one thing that I did think that was sort of applicable to this group is it will contain an external counsel. And that's a role where I feel like this commission can really make some pretty serious contributions. To give you an idea of what this is going to look like is this will be an external council that's comprised of different groups. So I met with CR, the diversity, equity, and inclusion chief there last night. It'll probably include Humboldt Area Foundation, CR, Cal Poly Humboldt, the city of Eureka, and then hopefully participation from this committee or members of this committee. And really the purpose of that is so we can sort of do a better job countywide with the larger organizations in the area of really coordinating our efforts, holding each other accountable to make sure that we are progressing in our diversity, equity, and inclusion work, sharing resources, and really just taking advantage of economies of scale, so to speak, to sort of use an economic term. So that's an opportunity for contributions from this committee. Also, Naftali touched on the affinity groups as well. This is something that we are really, really, really proud of. This happened quickly. This happened as a result of the Great Workplace Culture Change, which is an internal initiative that we have been working on for the better part of the last 3 years. It involves staff. Staff made a recommendation. They'd like to see affinity groups. And so we were able to sort of bring those from conception through implementation in a period of less than a year, which we are really quite proud of. Today, as it stands, we have active affinity groups in the areas of Two-Spirit, LGBTQIA+, neurodiversity, and Latinx. A Latinx affinity group. Sorry, the hesitation was because it was Latinx in social services branch. So kind of narrowed to DHHS, but it's actually like expanded. And so we are really, really quite proud of that. So what's coming next for us and what we are working on now as well is also looking at how we can expand the number of groups, how we can really encourage participation in these groups, because this has never been done before. And anytime you sort of introduce things that have never really been done before, you have, as with anything else, you have those early adopters, but then you also have the majority sort of the bell curve, so to speak, or wait and see, learn a little bit more, see what the group's do, and then decide whether or not to engage. And then the affinity groups, one of the primary goal of those groups is really to find out how we can use to establish a feedback loop, with those groups, and then find out how these groups and these populations that have traditionally been overlooked can really support our organizational strategy. We will also continue, we are in the midst of a culture change initiative, which I had said that has been in place over the last 3 years. We are transitioning that now to from great workplace culture change is what we've sort of the banner that it was under previously. It's now turning into something called Workplace 2030. And what that means is we're really looking at our culture, but through a lens of identifying where do we want to be in 2030. And this is really comprehensive. I mean, there are so many things that are involved in this, and there'll be a board presentation forthcoming as well. And then, of course, our website. So we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion website. Again, never been done because we're blazing trails here before, working on that. That is going to go live in January. And this is going to be internal and external facing. It's going to contain information and data such as workforce demographics. It will link to those affinity groups. It will contain information about diversity, equity, and inclusion events and efforts that are happening inside of the county, outside of the county. If this commission has anything that they want on the website, we're happy to include that. I'm really, really excited about this. And most importantly is that it will allow us to hold, it will allow the public, to hold us accountable to our promises. The last thing that I'll say before I move forward, and I'm going to go back to the plan, is that the work of this committee, particularly the last report that you presented to the board, your survey results around community safety and the concerns around law enforcement and housing and health, that is actually cited in the plan. So you can rest assured that that work will be highlighted in the plan. Another thing that I'm quite proud of that we developed is a diversity framework in the Office of Human Resources. So this is really just a graphical representation that sort of seeks to bring together everything with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion in the county. So what we see here, professionalism, teamwork, service, communication, these are core values that were really derived through the first couple phases of our organizational culture initiative. And then you see the trees, because it's Humboldt, so we need trees. And as we grow toward our strategic objectives, diversity, equity, and inclusion can be leveraged to achieve the strategic objectives. And we can do that through strategic partnerships, which is what we'll see in the plan. Resource limited environment. And so it's going to be difficult for the county as one agency to sort of solve these really big, complex problems. So we need the best way that we can do that is through strategic partnerships. Also, through continued professional development, it's particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion on the continuum. Every person is at a different spot, and we need to make sure that we provide the context for professional development around diversity, equity, and inclusion so our staff can continue to grow in that area. And there's a lot of exciting ways that we're going to do that. And then embracing our leadership role in the community is the highest level of government in the county of Humboldt. So not shying away from anything that may be controversial or never been done before. And I have to say, I do really give a lot of credit to our board, because whether it was introducing diversity, equity, and inclusion language into the organizational lexicon, mandating required diversity training for the first time in the history of the county organization-wide, or a host of other steps, that the adoption of this diversity framework and a bunch of other steps that are coming that this board is not shied away from, but actually they run head on into and really embrace this. I want to take a second. Naftali referenced the diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment that we ran that was inaugural. That took place about a year ago. We will run it again this year. But we completed for the first time ever org-wide diversity, equity, and inclusion assessment, where we really wanted to get a sense of what the lived experience was like for our employee populations in the county of Humboldt. We had about 818 responses. To put that into perspective, we had a total permanent employee base at that point in time of about 2,100. And so that is a great response rate. Any researcher will tell you that. We had participation from department heads. We held focus groups, and we had, this is blocking this. So we had about 13 respondents in all of those focus groups. And so that really allowed us in the Office of Human Resources and the department heads, as I presented this to them and the board, to gain an understanding of what the lived experience was like. And we found out that the results revealed that we have some work to do. So here's sort of a summary of what the data revealed. I made a public presentation on this to the board, so I'm not going to sort of get into each individual finding, but suffice it to say that, like many organizations, what we found was that there are sort of different lived organizational experiences depending on what group you identify with or present as. And that's something that I know there's a lot of passion from Director Ohanan on, as well as myself, to sort of bring that in line more and make the county of Humboldt an employer of choice, but also an environment where our staff feel comfortable bringing their full and complete selves to work every day. So what's happening next? I'm going to complete the plan. It's going to be completed in the month of December. Internally, we will begin the stakeholder engagement process, where myself, Director Ohanan, will begin to engage department heads, and we will then begin to engage some community partners. Happy to share the plan with this committee. I had mentioned the website is going to be launched. We're going to roll out Workplace 2030 culture change initiative that I mentioned earlier. This is really big, really expansive, and I'm really excited about it. And then again, being out in the community more, because as Naftali pointed out, we've come far, fast, community doesn't really know a lot about what we're doing. And so we're really going to get out there more and start sharing information on what we're doing, but also establishing that feedback loop and listening more to ultimately learn how we can respond to some community level needs as well. So that is really it. Really appreciate it. You see our contact information and phone numbers here. Should you want to reach out to us, again, I'm happy to sort of share this with Jim so he can share it with the committee. But at this time, that's really all I have. And we'd be happy to hear, answer any questions that the committee has.
Well, as a matter of fact, I do have a question. I don't know if it would go to both of you or just to Naftali, but in your training sessions and your introducing these programs to people, have the supervising level employees been in the mix right from the beginning, or have they been approached separately? I'm seeing an advantage that they would hear about all of this at the same time as their subordinates might.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of the timeline of how exactly that happened, but so the steering committee I mentioned has been meeting since mid 2020, and there are supervisor level staff there. We do have a regular meeting of supervisor on up to directors where some of these topics are discussed as a group. Part of the rollout process with the strategic plan began first at the director level, as we kind of did the charting of what type of activity would go along with sharing the strategic plan and some of those goals. And we elected to start with the supervisor groups, and so that the supervisors would understand what's in the plan, what's expected of them, or what might be coming through that plan in terms of training and support and resources. And that it would be up to those supervisors to then bring that to their individual staff teams. And so they did see it first in that way, but they weren't necessarily part of the planning and creation of it, but did have some time to kind of digest the work and really process what that might mean before their staff saw it often. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry, Bert, if I jumped in ahead of you, but Bert,
No
do you have...
problem. That's fine. I just wonder what kind of follow-up and accountability and so forth is built into this whole process, because I hear a lot of times when people say, well, I took that training, that's all I needed. And it never really gets through and it isn't used. So what's the follow through to see that we have more, it's being used more than sometimes happens with something like this?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so part of with this, I mentioned we have supervisor trainings planned specifically. So with that group, we will be doing kind of a cohort-based coaching model. And so they'll go through a 4-hour training that's in development now. And the group that participated in the training will participate in a cohort-based coaching, as I said. And so really flexing those skills, asking how they might be applying them day to day, if they're running into any challenges, if something has come up with staff where they were able to kind of use some of those skills or conversation topics potentially. So having that ongoing training or coaching to follow the training session really should help. We're thinking cement that, but trying to put in place things like pre and post tests or even surveys of staff to see, like Jeremy and HR did the 2021 org-wide assessment. So how over time, when they run it this year, do those metrics change, if at all? And are the efforts we're putting in place making any sort of impact in those areas? So those types of things will help us understand if the work we're doing is having an effect or not, and in what areas, so we can adjust or make improvements as needed. So trying to be really thoughtful as we go along to get data at the outset, so we know how to, so we have something to measure against as we go forward. Jeremy, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I can sort of build on that, Naftali is absolutely right. From sort of a global standpoint, in HR, we are concerned we would like to develop supervisory capacity for all of our frontline and mid-level leaders org-wide in all of our departments. And one of the ways to do, there are many ways to do that, but Holly's right in the coaching, the providing the access to the training and learning opportunities, professional development opportunities, holding accountable, there is a supervisor measure in our DEI assessment. So she's absolutely right that will likely be reflected in the data. But if I can just be honest with this group, philosophically, I am not someone that believes that training is the answer. I just have to be honest. And I just need to tell this group, just so you understand a little bit about my background. I have a PhD from the University of Minnesota in Human Resource Development. I literally wrote my doctoral dissertation on the lived experience of participating in diversity training because I wanted to know what that was like. I share that just to say I'm very familiar with organizational training, literature, and design and transfer. So the application of training is difficult for anything. That difficulty is expanded upon when you get into the diversity, equity, and inclusion realm. I should apologize. I have two beagles, and they are really excited. So someone must be walking their dog in front of my house. So sure it'll pass in a second. And so again, our goal from HR really is going to be, how can we encourage and motivate that transfer of knowledge gain? And some of that is going to be in coaching. Some of that is going to be by putting people in providing experiential opportunities. From a literature standpoint, one of the biggest things that has been shown to move the needle is mentorship programs. Because if someone like me and have me mentor someone that is different from me in many ways, the closeness of that relationship, the trust developed, has been shown to produce change. The affinity groups that we mentioned earlier are also another way to sort of motivate this change as well, because they are there to hold people accountable. So the way that we're going to do that is by not shying away from holding each other accountable. And believe you me to say that we are committed to that, as is the HR director, my boss. So,
Jeremy, and I think you mentioned something that reminded me as well, is everything that's been said, but also trying to align training and sort of professional development along with addressing how policies and expectations are written and utilized to hold people accountable over time, where we don't just move forward like in word, that in fact our policies grow along with us. And so that when we hold staff accountable, when we're doing maybe it's our exit interviews and we're reflecting on how supervisors manage teams or what have you, that we're able to actually hold accountable staff for the expectations that we've set for them in the workplace. Just like we might have an attendance policy or something else, that we have policies that hold folks accountable to our values related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So having that structure in place where we're moving both forward at the same time.
absolutely. And that policy examination work is underway. Absolutely. Right now. So
Are
great
there
questions.
any additional questions from the commission? Well,
Carol came off mute, it looks like.
Yes.
pardon?
Hello.
Oh,
Thank
hi,
you
Carol.
for this. Yeah, thank you for this presentation. It's pleasing to see that you've also are going to include the local indigenous community, as I am one of those individuals. So that was very, again, pleasing to see that we're included, because in most counties and communities, the Native people are not represented. And Humboldt County has one of the largest tribes in California, plus the 9 other tribes. So thank you.
Oh, our pleasure. And I mean, I think, as you alluded to, just from a population standpoint, the indigenous population is significant here. But I mean, that's a population that plays a key role in all that we do here. And so I expect, trying to think of how to put this delicately, and that's not necessarily sort of a skill that I excel at. Suffice it to say that I think that it's been obvious if you read news reports that there's been some challenges between the county and some of the tribes. And so what I can say is that Neftali and I, and not just Neftali, I mean, there's a whole team of people behind the scenes, a lot of people that have other jobs that really volunteer, but that's a relationship that we are very committed to, building on in recognition of the key role that Indigenous population plays in Humboldt County.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both very much for being with us tonight. I think the county has chosen their leadership on this subject very, very well. And I do hope that if there are ways in which we can participate going down the road, I'm sure that we would love to do that.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. And actually, so I have a question for the committee, if I may, and that is,
Sure.
And I realize it's difficult sort of without, details, but does the idea of serving on an external council with other large organizations appeal at all to this committee or its membership?
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but I would certainly think so.
I think so. I would agree.
Yes, I would agree that at least we want to look at it and see how we could be effective in some kind of committee like that.
That's encouraging, because I do think that I'm a big fan of the work of this committee, and that voice, that lens would be beneficial. And so I will, again, Jim, I'm happy to send you the plan. Again, it should be done in a couple of weeks. So, and you'll see the committee gets it for feedback, but also just for your thoughts on the External Diversity Council.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Neftali, do you have anything?
No, thank you. Just thank you so much for having us. And I'm really happy to be connected and see how we can support one another in the work we're both doing. So thank you.
Very good. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
You as well.
Okay. Next item on the agenda will be public comment on non-agenda items. Anybody speaking would have 3 minutes to make their statement, but this is non-agenda items. Is there anybody that would like to speak?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
I would. Hi.
Hi. Okay, Lark, go right ahead. I have to hold you to a strict 3 minutes, but go ahead.
I understand. Hello, I'm Lark Doolin. I'm the executive director of Queer Humboldt, and I'm delighted to be here today and to be present for the important work you're doing. I woke up this morning and I saw something on the news that made my heart so happy. And that's not the case every day as a queer person living in our country. But today I woke up and I saw that the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, in partnership with the city of San Francisco, has created a new position. And it's called the First Drag Laureate. Basically, this is a stipend position for a drag performer to be appointed drag laureate and to do educational opportunity projects where they teach people about the incredible contributions of queer people within our local community. And when I saw this, I thought, what a beautiful way to use creative arts and performance art and queer culture to really celebrate and center queer people. And so I thought, well, how can I help, right? And so I'm here today to bring this idea to you, the idea of Humboldt County having a drag laureate position, a way of celebrating and uplifting queer culture in a way that's formally recognized and celebrated. I would be happy as the executive director of Queer Humboldt to work on writing grants and getting funding so that the person can have a stipend. for a year of doing education in our community. So I wanted to bring this non-agenda item to you to pitch it. The city of San Francisco has a flyer. They're taking applications now, and I've posted that on our Queer Humboldt Facebook page. So if you want to look at how San Francisco is doing it, that resource is posted and available. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
All right. Thank you very much. We can't comment on non-agenda items, but if you wish to send us some additional literature, we'd be more than happy to take a look at it, maybe for a future agenda. Okay, thank you. All right, any other public comment on non-agenda items? Okay. The next item is commission communications. Emails, regular mail, etc. I do have one email that I'd like to share with you. It will be relevant to an agenda item that's coming up shortly. And it reads this way. It says, "Hi, Jim. I'm caring for 4 of my grandchildren to Tuesday through Thursday of this week, and that includes evening care. It will be difficult for me to attend the Human Rights Commission meeting on Thursday evening." And he thanks me for sending the link for the agenda. He asked if possible at the public comment section, if you're permitted to read in emails that you've received. So that's why I think this is the appropriate spot to do that. I wanted to comment as follows. Here's his basic statement. Anti-Semitic hate pamphlets are really meant to scare our community and to push Humboldt County to welcome this content. It feels that the goal is to divide Americans not only along political, class, and racial lines, but to also divide us along religious lines. It's easy to say that these hate pamphlets are full of misinformation based on the belief in stereotypes and myths about Jewish people and Israel. It's easy to dismiss the pamphlets as insane stuff, but these anti-Semitic incidents are a big deal. They are funded very well, and they are very hostile and threatening. Many of us think that law enforcement is the right response to these incidents, but law enforcement is not the only answer here. There really needs to be a coming together of the community for no tolerance of hate pamphlets, period. We all have to play a role in confronting, disclosing, and stopping it. If the commission hasn't done so already, the Humboldt County Human Rights Commission should publish a formal statement condemning the anti-Semitic hate pamphlets found in our community. And I'll leave his name out of it. Anyway, that's the information I received. Are there any other emails or regular mail that anybody's received? Okay. Then the next item up would be a message line report. And we should, I think, have a report from Carol for the 1st through the 15th of November, and from Dotso for the 16th through the 30th. So, Carol, do you have a report for us?
Yes, I have to apologize. I completely forgot about my time, and I let Dotso know that I totally forgot about it. I've been having colds and flus and so forth, and then with Thanksgiving, so prior to that. So I want to thank Dotso for taking over the messages that I missed.
Okay.
You're welcome. That was no problem. And then you passed baton, and we've been dealing with the flu and the sickness and all that too. So I have quite a few messages. The first message was, how much do I read?
You can just summarize the
Okay.
messages, and if there's duplications, you can just say that you've got another message similar to this one or something like that.
Sure. Okay. So the first message was someone that had attended the Redwood Pride event and commented in support of the Redwood Pride event. The next message was a mother and a community member living in the Freshwater Neeland area who is experiencing racism there in the community and in the schools, and would like to organize some sort of community event celebrating diversity. So I left messages. I think one of the issues, and Jim and I spoke about this, is that we call from our own phone numbers, which are blocked numbers, and people don't often answer our calls. So I have not actually spoken to that woman. There was another call from someone who attended the Redwood Pride event, was feeling concerns, safety for themselves. Another call was a woman. I responded to her. She did not answer me. And then a couple of reporters called. I passed the information on to Jim, and one of them was past the deadline when I got the message. And the next one, I believe Jim reached out to them.
Yes.
Another person was an attendee of the Redwood Pride event and left a really long message, which I left on the message machine. If anyone wants to listen to it, he wanted it to be private. He didn't want me to relay his message on air or on the meeting. Another message was concerned. He was a member of the LGBTQ plus community and was concerned about their safety and also about anti-Semitism in the community. They had some hang up. A repeat call from a prior caller. And there was that caller left another message about a week ago, and I also left that there. If anyone wants to listen to that, they had left some information and some feelings that they had, and they wanted to be kept private as well. Another woman was having concerns about her apartment building and neighbors, and her children, and issues with her, and I passed on some phone numbers to her to contact people to help her. And then another woman called and left a message, and I have not heard back from them, or I have not, I was not able to speak to them. When I called, they did not pick up. And then another caller who I've spoken about a couple times called back and left another message. So.
That's it?
Yeah, that was all. But some big things that people were really concerned about, and I did leave that, I did not erase those messages for people to listen to them so that you guys can kind of hear their concerns as well. And I hope that we reach the woman in the Neeland area and we can speak to her, and maybe we can try to organize something with her, or she can come to our meeting and try to organize something.
I should follow up on your comment about the phone. I did check with IT, and I didn't get a very satisfactory answer. I was asking them if they could, when we're using that number blocking system, if there was still a way for it to say Human Rights Commission in the caller ID. And they said that would be up to the phone company. I'm not 100% sure that was an accurate answer, but I'm not a tech person, so I'll keep checking into it, because it seems like there ought to be some way to let them know who it is without giving our personal phone numbers out. But maybe I'll have something more to report next time.
Maybe we could speak another time about Google phone numbers. I know a few of my clients that live internationally will use a Google number. I'm not exactly sure what that entails. So
I don't know if they're interchangeable with our county funded system.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But I'll check into it some more.
I think it'd definitely be helpful with communications, because I think that people are they don't answer the phone calls when we call.
I understand that. Okay, any questions for Dotso? Thanks for helping Carol out, and thanks for covering that.
No problem.
Just as a reminder, Jamie, you are on starting today. She's got a thumbs up, good. And then Larry is on for the second half of the month. And we'll take volunteers for January. I'll volunteer for January 1st.
It looks like maybe there are people here.
We already have January
Yeah, we
Oh,
have
I'm sorry.
up until March.
and February.
Excuse me. Yes, you're right. Is that far enough ahead? I would think it might be.
It's like March 1st.
We'll do March at the next meeting. Okay. All right, Larry, is there a correctional facilities report?
Not really much of anything to speak to. It's been very quiet. Obviously, none of our phone messages were from inmates requesting us to speak with them. I did call our liaison, Norma, and she mentioned that they are slowly getting back to normal. They are experiencing an increased number of volunteers and activities, and she seemed pretty, upbeat about the whole thing. So, other than that, that's about all I have to report.
Okay, any questions for Larry? All right, thank you, Larry. Standing committee reports. The first one would be sanctuary ordinance. I assume there's nothing to
Nothing.
report. I haven't had any activity. Okay. And then the human trafficking fund report. All there is to report there is that the line item that we have with the county for $5,000 is now available, and we'll have to set up some sort of a mechanism for EPI to turn in expenses to us so that they can get repaid. This is a little different than when we had the grant situation. So I don't know, Bird, do you have a suggestion?
I just wonder, the money that left over, the 500, actually came from the Board of Supervisors in the beginning. So it looks to me like we should be able to just wrap that into the 5,000.
Yeah, it was a grant, and I don't know if the board would see that differently or not, but
I think that's where we'd have to get the answer, how we do that.
right. And I think Guy has agreed to check into that, or would you like me to? Okay.
I should be able to do it.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, we'll check into that. All right. Ad hoc committee reports. The first ad hoc committee report is from the Rapid Response Committee. And I'm going to share the screen so that you can see what we were proposing. After our first two rapid responses, one having to do with the Pride event and the other having to do with the anti-Semitic literature being distributed, we thought we would tighten up our policy just a little bit, not to try to make it a slower response, but to try to make it as accurate as possible and still be effective. So everything that you see in red is added language. And I hope you had a chance to look at this.
Yeah.
But if you have, and if there aren't any comments, the chair would entertain a motion to adopt these recommendations for the board.
I so move.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I think Guy got you.
Oh, God.
Hard for me to tell going back and forth between. Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay.
I'm wondering, there is one thing I just had a thought about, Jim, and that if you go back to the beginning, would you please? Where you actually mentioned two specific things, the Halloween Pride event and the Planning Commission, they're relevant right now, but will they be relevant in the future? Should we maybe not have anything quite that specific?
I think the Planning Commission one was in the original, and I agree with you. I think we should leave it. I'll leave the words up to you, but I don't think we should be so specific because that's not our intention here. How about,
Just leave it out.
well, how much of it though?
Could we just say current
just the
discussion,
red part.
derogatory remarks about Native American groups or other
Oh, how about any groups?
any groups? Yeah, I mean, let's not be specific at all. We need to, I'm not sure what the adjective is that we want to use, but about any targeted groups perhaps, or
It could be individuals too,
yeah, individuals or targeted groups.
activities,
Made about,
individual.
or groups?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, and then we're covering everything.
Okay, that's,
I'd say activities is too.
okay. Remarks and or activities?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Discussion of,
Larry, were you saying the activities should go after individuals, like individuals, groups, or activities?
Yeah,
Or-
that's what that would be. Right. Yeah.
how about
That's
action?
all.
How about actions instead of activities?
I think,
Okay.
Jim, I think he's saying that like, it may not be an individual or a group, it might be like an event or
Right.
an
That's what I was-
activity that's going on in the community that where someone makes a derogatory remark about it.
Could
So,
we say current discussion of derogatory remarks or action targeting specific individuals or groups?
what did you say after actions?
Targeting. Word.
I like that.
Specific individuals or groups.
If I could only spell. Are we there?
I think so.
Oh.
And I think that's all encompassing enough, isn't it? So that we're
I think,
talking.
it-
I think. So. Yeah. Yeah.
all right, any other comments, suggestions, or discussion? I hope we aren't going to have to use this all that often, but I think it's a good tool for us to have.
Yes.
Okay, that being the case, all those in favor of approving the policy change, please indicate by saying, or with your hands in the air.
I can't find my hand.
Okay. Six. I think we have three, 7. Yes, any nays? No nays? Okay, it's approved unanimously. Thank you.
Jim,
Yes,
is this going to be posted on our website?
well, this is more of an internal type of document, I would think. I'm not opposed to doing that. I just that hadn't occurred to me. Bird?
I think this is something that is internal until we use it, and then it can go on the website. Because then, once we used it for a specific instance, I don't think we want to put this out there just because this is generic. This is not a specific thing. So only when we use it, then we can put it on the website.
It does bring to mind the possibility that this could be a new link on the county website for any of our rapid responses. And you could almost historically look at the various comments we've made over a period of time.
I think that'd be really cool.
I do too.
Very good. Yeah, very good. But don't put the generic one on.
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on this item? All right. You're- All right, the next committee report would be on racism, cultural awareness, and cultural awareness. Carol?
Nothing to report.
Okay. How about homelessness, behavioral health? Guy?
No real changes there. The only thing I can comment on is I did receive a email from Supervisor Mike Wilson. I was questioning him about the grants that are being received by a number of organizations and asking him about auditing. And he did clarify that he said they're audited at least twice, sometimes 3 times. He says by the local program, the audit department, and also by the state granting agency. So at least got a response from him on that. Beyond that, I'm just following, some of the press releases. It seems like we've maybe hit some critical mass right now that the state and county authorities seem to be, pushing a lot more money out. That's principally the reason for my note to, the Board of Supervisors over auditing, because it's great that there's some money coming in. I just want to make sure it's being spent well, because, we hear a lot about the different agencies and what they're doing, but I really want to see the numbers that they're impacting.
Yeah. Something that occurred to me, AHA is discontinuing their shower trailer. I wonder if somebody else is going to pick that up in lieu of them. Anybody know?
Jim, do you know why they are?
I think it was an economic thing. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was a cost of operation type issue.
Yeah, I can't answer either, but it may be again with grants. I mean, that's one of the problems with grants is that they may run short on funds and may not have been renewed. I don't know.
Yeah, it just seemed like that was a good service, and
Yeah.
maybe I'll give AHA a call and see if I could find out a little bit more. Okay, thank you, Guy. Survey results and policies. Ellen, hello?
Hi. Hi, nothing to report this time around. Just I was thinking today that last year was when the survey started. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, how time flies.
Yeah. And then I was thinking that, we had talked about wanting to do another survey, of course, not at this point, but at some point we would, and then trying to think about what that might look like. So that's not really maybe for this moment, but just a thought on that. That's all.
All right, we have a meeting coming up.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Any questions for Ellen?
Mm-mm.
Okay. New commission logo. Thought so.
I was hoping to speak to you before today, but I never got a chance to reach out to you. Have you received any more submissions?
No, the last communication I had was that we should have some by December 15th. That was from one, I think, a teacher.
Yeah, and that was from Southwark High School. So I'm actually really surprised. I would assume for $500 that there would be a lot of artists and graphic designers that would be really involved in wanting to do this.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have to consider an alternative conclusion to this. I don't know. Depends on what we finally end up with. But we can't just post a winner just to be posting a winner. It's got to be something that represents what we want. So it's a decision we'll have to make in January, I guess.
Yeah. But maybe we should do a push. I don't know if everyone's shared the social media posts. I can post a link and send it to everybody, and maybe we can try to do a push on social media. We have one more month, and see if people. I mean,
I certainly would do it.
Mhm.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will send everyone a link, and then maybe we can try to do a big push and get that out there. And then I do have a few more posters, so I'm actually going up north tomorrow, and I'll go hang up some more posters and see if that makes a difference.
I have a handful of posters left as well.
Okay. And we'll meet up again in January, and hopefully we have something.
All right.
What is the deadline?
December 31st, I believe.
Yes. So if you know any artists or budding artists, let them know. All right. Next item is Indigenous Peoples Committee. And Lisa said she was going to be here tonight. But Carol, do you know anything about what she might have been planning to report?
No, I don't.
That's unfortunate. Okay. We're running through the balance of the agenda rather quick. How about Junior Human Rights Commission? Jamie.
Yeah, so we didn't meet as a full committee this month, but Bird and I did meet with Derek Kingham, who is one of the coordinators for the Girl Scouts, that we were talking to about initially trying to recruit some girls to do a Girl Scout project, to design and develop the kind of kickoff planning of the Junior Human Rights Commission through the election. So we've confirmed the date of January 29th, which is a Sunday from, for us, it'll be from 11 to 4:30. And I've secured a room on campus at Cal Poly Humboldt. And it'll be a co-sponsored event by the Department of Social Work, the Human Rights Commission, and the Girl Scouts of America. And that will be, we're going to operate a poverty simulation during that event. So Derek just emailed me today. He's working on a flyer to recruit the girls. He says to expect about 15 to 20 girls, 8th, 9th grade level, most of them, some maybe older than that, but at least 8th grade. With the idea that they'll be going into high school, and that kind of gets to how would we recruit some freshmen to do this, to do the to be commissioners. So he's working on that piece. He's going to meet with the girls in the morning. He wants to make it part of the Journey badge for the Girl Scouts. So he's going to meet with the girls in the morning and talk to them about what is advocacy and what does that mean? How is that different than just volunteering? And then they will come over to the campus and engage in this poverty simulation from about 11 to 2:30 with a lunch break in there. And then we'll do a debrief of the simulation. Then I'm hoping that, Jim, you don't know this, but I put you on the agenda. Hoping you can introduce the concept of the Human Rights Commission, talk a little bit about what the Human Rights Commission is and what we do.
I assume this is in person, so it's not a virtual thing.
It is in person, yeah.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, and then we'll do an intro to the concept of the Junior Human Rights Commission, and I'll do some kind of creative activities to help brainstorm what that would look like, get the kids excited about it, and then ask for a commitment and next steps and see if I can kind of recruit a couple girls to continue working with us on it. To do the simulation, this is another ask I have. I'm going to need about 20 volunteers. So if you or someone you know would like to volunteer, I am partnering with, the reason I'm partnering with the social work department is that I'm going to pull some social work students in the Social Work Student Association to volunteer and participate. It'll be great practice for them, facilitating, and it's just fun to have college students being part of it. But if any of you want to volunteer to help facilitate the poverty simulation, that would be great.
What would that participation look like?
Yeah, so the room is set up. The girls will walk in and they'll get assigned a family packet, which will have a little bit of information about their kind of family, like their situation. They'll have some resources in that packet, and they'll have some other kind of components. And then around the room, there will be things set up like a police station, an electric company, a grocery store. And the girls will have to kind of like navigate through this simulation of how do they like spend their money, pay their bills, pay their rent, all of those things. So volunteers kind of run those different sites.
Oh,
You would be standing at a table and you might be like the grocery person. And so someone would come up and you would sell them their groceries, or collect money for their rent or so on.
okay.
It's pretty easy, volunteer. And we can do a prep before. I'll do a prep before with the volunteers to kind of assign roles and make sure everyone feels good about it.
Am I correct? That's a Sunday?
It's a Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So let me know. Next step, we're just working on getting the flyer out to recruit the girls. And then I'm going to be working on kind of the presentation piece and prepping for the simulation, creating a flyer to just increase awareness about the Junior Human Rights Commission so that I can give that to the girls there. But also that will simultaneously, probably over my winter break, be going out to all the different high schools as well, so that they'll start to know, we can start to identify people there who will be kind of champions on each campus.
This sounds like a good project.
So that's where we are. We don't have another meeting scheduled, but I'll be reaching out to schedule that. Bird.
So the information that's going out to all the high schools is going to be inviting them to this event. Is that correct?
No,
Because it's just girls.
Right now it's just the Girl Scouts. They are talking about whether to include the Boy Scouts. But that's a kind of discussion between them. I don't really care. We have a limit of how many people we can have at the event, just because, if you get too many people, it just gets chaotic and you don't really get a good engagement. But I mean, we can have 40 people and that would be great. 40 girls or kids, that would be great. So we haven't really determined that, but the flyer is going to go out to the principals, to the high schools, to just tell them about the Junior Human Rights Commission, what it is, that it's in the planning process, and ask them to identify a staff person or a teacher or a counselor who might be the champion on that campus to help recruit kids and get word out to students in the schools.
Okay, well, if anybody has the time to assist, get in touch with Jamie and let us know if there's additional things we can do to help along the way.
Will do.
All right,
keep you posted.
Thank you, Jamie.
Sure.
The unfinished business. Just a reminder that we will be accepting the proclamation from the Board of Supervisors at their next Tuesday meeting. If any of you were able to attend, I will be there, but be nice if they saw some other faces besides mine. And I do think that I will be reading a statement before or at the time that they make the proclamation to try to draw their attention to the fact that there are relevant issues right now in Humboldt County. And these aren't just hypothetical situations. They really do exist, and we need to stay on top of it.
Do you have a time yet for that?
all I can tell you, no, I haven't seen the agenda yet. All I know is that the meeting starts at 9, and usually it's a good half hour before they get into anything. Oh, wait, if it's part of the consent agenda, it might be in that first hour. As soon as I know anything more detailed, I'll let you know. Okay. The next item is new business. And the item has to do with something we've already talked about a little bit here. It has to do with anti-Semitic literature, which at least on 2 different occasions has been dropped in people's yards, once in July and again in the early part of November. And that's what prompted that email that I received. I don't know exactly what you might think that the Human Rights Commission could or should do at this point, but I know it's not enough for these people that are being attacked to have the police know about it, but the community needs to be aware too. And I'm open to suggestions on what we might consider a proper action. I did think, oh, Sean, yes, go ahead, Sean.
I guess I would just suggest that the commission itself or any member of the commission could produce a radio or TV spot that we'd be very happy to share on Access Humboldt.
How much time are you talking about?
Oh, we have free airtime on our station, so on both radio and TV, so the duration isn't, it's more about, I guess, agreeing on, or sort of individuals could do this on their own, but I'm responding to your call that people should be made aware in the community.
Right.
And I'm thinking there's an easy way to do that is to have those reports, presented on radio and television locally. We have an outlet for that.
Well, I think we might be able to take you up on that. Bird?
I'm wondering, we did have a rapid response for this, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
And I'm wondering if that could be repeated. Is that something that maybe could be repeated, Sean? Or did it go as a letter to the editor, or, how did it go? Maybe we need to distribute it more broadly than we did.
I'm sure you're right. We do need to distribute it more broadly.
Then I think we should do that right away.
Sean, go ahead.
I guess my quick response is putting out a press release is helpful, but it may or may not be translated into a media product that airs on a station or appears in a news outlet, right? I mean, we saw I saw stories about these events, so I don't know if that's because of the commission or because the reporters found out. But in terms of follow-up or elevating community awareness, essentially the step that may be missing is converting whatever statement that you may come out with into a radio or TV product, right? And I would just offer, let us know if we can help you with that. Because if you've basically authored a statement, it's not hard at all to produce that into radio or TV.
Well, I'm of a mind that we could take what was basically in the rapid response and expand on it a little bit. And I would certainly share that with the commission before we would go any further with it, make sure it's a product that you feel comfortable with.
In what way would you expand it?
Oh, well, I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Maybe it's a little too short. Maybe it needs a little bit more narrative in it, but should stick basically to the same format, I would think. except it's already been on the agenda, so we wouldn't say that part of it.
Okay. Oh, but maybe we should say that it has been discussed. And
We could do that.
We are repeating our statement that it is unacceptable and we do not want it. And you did have something in the statement you were making to the Board of Supervisors about fear, and maybe that portion could go into it as well.
That could be the expansion of the original rapid response. That's kind of what I was thinking too.
That would be good.
Ellen, and then Larry.
I'm just wondering if reaching out to some Jewish community leaders or thought leaders or religious community or something like that might be a helpful thing for some guidance on best ways to do that, perhaps.
That might be the email that I read earlier this evening was from a Jewish community member, and he's pretty smart about stuff like that. So he might be able to make a suggestion or two as well. Larry.
I was just thinking that maybe we should have something in there about, individuals or people in the community experiencing that or suspecting, that is occurring, to have them contact the Human Rights Commission. I mean,
some will.
Yeah. I mean, anyway, I was thinking that might be part of this piece for the newspaper or for the Access.
Access Humboldt, yeah. Ellen, another thought?
No, I just can't figure out how to put my hand down. I'm sorry.
Go back to the reactions and it'll say lower hand.
Yeah, I'm on my phone and it's different. I'm sure it's there. I can't find it.
Well, do we have any kind of consensus that we should move forward with something, as long as I show you what the finished product might be before we do it?
Yes.
I see heads nodding. I guess that means yes.
Yes.
I'll second that. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I'll put something together and I'll get in touch with you, Sean.
Fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much for the offer. Okay.
Would it be possible, Jim, maybe to speak to the person who sent the email and see if perhaps that person would also like to take up, to say something on Access Humboldt, if Sean is willing? I mean, it seems to me anybody can do it. Is that right, Sean?
That's correct. We would certainly invite any commissioner or any member of the public to do the same thing and share their thoughts and perspective. Absolutely.
Well, I can certainly make that offer available. I don't know whether he wishes to remain anonymous or not, but that I could certainly find out.
He might know someone too, and he might suggest someone in his community.
He's well connected with Temple Bethel. So
yeah.
So
Yes.
That's a good connection. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll be sending something out for your review in the next day or two then, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Sean. Okay. Item 15 is future agenda items. Is there anything we haven't been covering lately that you'd like us to cover at the January meeting?
Jim,
Yeah.
I had an idea for a presentation.
Okay. Well,
I went to an international harm reduction conference, and there, one of the presenters talked about pronouns and the meaning of pronouns and how they're used. And I seem to see that even on TV, the national news, people are introducing themselves as she, her, he, him, and so
Oh,
forth.
We have two right here.
Uh-huh. And I'm not sure we all understand what that means. And I've talked to Dr. I can't even think of his name. He works at the clinic. Anyway, he did the presentation, and he'd be willing to provide a presentation to us in January if that's possible.
We,
Dr. Raymer.
Guy, are we committed to anybody? I forget who it was.
We have Fernando Paz, I think, is going to be coming, talking about the Latino community.
Okay, well, how about February, Carol?
Sure, I'll ask Dr. Raymer.
Okay,
He
so we could
is more
plan on
than
that.
willing to.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then maybe you can, after you've talked to him, send me a message with a more specific description of exactly what the presentation will be. Tell him it'll be about 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
Tonight's went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but it was worth it, I think. Okay, any other agenda items for the January meeting?
Just that the meeting is not January 1st, it's January 5th.
Ah, okay. Thank you.
And the things that we've already talked about, the logo and so forth, you know,
Yeah, those
You got
will come up again.
yeah, okay.
Okay, well, if that is all that we have to talk about, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, Larry got it that time.
I got it then.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning for the evening, raise your hand.
Aye.
Yeah.
That's a figurative hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much for a good meeting, and have a nice holiday if I don't see you before.
You too. Thank you.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Bye.